Welcome to AltElxn 2025, your independent source for in-depth election coverage. This is the first of multiple shows from across Canada, coordinated by the National Campus and Community Radio Association of Canada. We are a network of more than 100 stations with local journalists, all prepared to bring you news, insights, interviews, and the latest updates leading up to the federal election. Stay tuned for more. Welcome to the show. My name is Bill Collins.
And I'm Peter Wainwright.
Today we're specifically looking at British Columbia's political landscape. Peter, how would you break down BC's electoral structure?
Okay, well, looking at the provincial legislature, there are 87 seats, but on the federal side, there are only 42, so roughly half. Provincially, it's been NDP holding the power since 2017, first under Horgan and now under David Eby, and very much a divided legislature, so, split roughly equally. On the federal side, though, BC is traditionally split between several parties.
Yeah, that's right. And looking at recent voting patterns, BC has shown some fascinating trends. While the lower mainland leans towards Liberals federally, the interior tends to favour the Conservatives. And Vancouver Island has historically been an NDP stronghold, but notable Green Party breakthroughs.
Yeah. According to Elections BC, in the last provincial election, the NDP got 47 seats. The Conservative Party won 44, and the Greens held 2, both of those here on Vancouver Island. It shows how the island sometimes votes differently from the rest of the province.
So let's just take a closer look. Can you paint the picture for me of our Saanich Gulf Islands riding?
Okay, so the Saanich Gulf Islands riding, which is where we're broadcasting from, encompasses the Saanich Peninsula and the communities on that, Central Saanich, North Saanich, Sydney, and part of Saanich, which is typically considered downtown, more towards Victoria, but then we stretch across the water and we include the southern Gulf Islands, that's like Salt Spring, North and South Pender, Main and Saturna Island. So this is significantly, we are in the Wasanich traditional territory.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a beautiful mix of suburban and rural farmland, and I guess small island communities. I think it would be fair to say the riding covers almost 460 square kilometers, and it's home to about 100,000 people.
Yeah, it's a little more than 100,000 now, maybe 110,000. Economically, it's equally diverse. Tourism is a major driver, with things like Butchart Gardens and cruise ships attracting tons of visitors annually. We've got major transportation infrastructure, Victoria International Airport, Swartz Bay Ferry Terminal, and Accordies Ferry Terminal. We've also got quite a bit of industry and a really thriving arts and culture community.
So welcome back, Bill and Peter here. You can pore over stats and polling data all day long, but sometimes the best political insights come from simply chatting with your neighbors.
Yeah, I have to agree, Bill. The polls have proven themselves wrong in the past, and the pulse of the community is something you get off the street.
Mark Bennett, I'm a financial advisor. The biggest issues I think coming up are trying to deal with Trump's tariffs and other shenanigans.
So it's an economic discussion more than anything. Would that be a fair comment?
I think that's true. My one big concern is that we all lean too hard into Mark Carney and get a little concerned about things that fall off the wayside, like looking after poor people, et cetera, et cetera.
So can I ask then, Mark, the other issues that were front and center, say prior to the tariffs and prior to the U.S. election last year, things such as the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Very good point. I'm literally wearing my Ukraine t-shirt as we speak, and it's a very important part of my life, really, to think about what's happening in Europe. And at the moment, it has literally fallen off the radar. Where it goes in the future, I assume that Carney is the kind of guy that believes in right and wrong, and what's happened in Ukraine is just wrong.
My name is Darren, and I work in technology. I think the biggest issue is dealing with uncertainty. I feel like we're back into pandemic level uncertainty where everybody is concerned. You see it in the markets, you see it in all demographics, you see it in all socioeconomic areas. They'll be freaked out, whether it's losing their job or not being able to be able to hold on to their stocks or retire or what have you. So removing uncertainty of that's, is the biggest issue that I could imagine will help.
I'm Malcolm. I live in Sydney, North Saanich, and I'm retired. Biggest issues in the election? I think the biggest issues are our extreme debt, our heavy debt, and it's going to affect our kids' ability to pay it back, and it'll affect business in the long run, and the ability to create because of the high tax burden, which will affect healthcare and everything, because I think we're going to be so far in debt, the government won't be able to support such things. So we have to encourage more business. We have to get the businesses' productivity up, because our productivity has just been waning. And if we get that up, I think that will create a tax base that can support the country.
Jane Wynn. I live in Sydney. The biggest issue, of course, is tariff and Trump's, but the biggest unaddressed issue is the environment. If we're going to cancel carbon taxes, then what's replacing it? And I'm listening for that with a keen ear to hear what all the other parties have to say about it. I was also intrigued by Jagmeet Singh's idea of lumber reservoir, so that we stockpile Canadian lumber to be used in building Canadian homes. I thought that was a hell of a good idea.
So I have to say, Bill, some of the responses are surprising, although some of the stuff obviously isn't surprising. It's what we're hearing on the news.
Yeah, the obviously we're very early in the election mode here. With our, we've only been about a week or two in, and there's still 3 weeks to go. So it's interesting. Some of the comments are still reporting, or folks still interested in Trump's tariffs, which are big, but also issues of the environment seem to be front and center of some people's minds, and is not surprising given the political history of this particular riding.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Welcome back. This is Bill and Peter, and now we want to turn to the candidates vying to represent the Saanich Gulf Islands in Ottawa. So we'll be hearing excerpts from our own interviews. Peter, you did them over the course of the last week. 3 of the 4 candidates made themselves available to come into the studio and chat with you. So we'll present some of the excerpts from those interviews. We'll start with comments from Elizabeth May.
What's motivating you to run in this election?
I mentioned I have a new grandbaby daughter named Lily, who was born October 30th. And I am well, I am healthy, I've got tons of energy, And I'm not prepared to leave this planet, or as we say, shuffle off this mortal coil, and leave the mess that we're in right now for my granddaughter Lily to find out about when she's old enough to understand what's going on around her. I want to have the world safer, more sustainable. I want to avert the worst of the climate disaster before my little grandbaby Lily can figure out the kind of trouble we're in. So that's my motivation.
So let's move on from there and talk about your experience in politics and relevant background.
Well, I was first elected May 2nd, 2011, and the media across the country and even locally, nobody saw it coming because I was running against a long-term conservative who was a member of the cabinet of the day of former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Very nice guy, Gary Lund, but winning here became the first seat won by the Green Party anywhere in Canada. And it did change the landscape and led to other people being elected across 4 provinces and federally and provincially. I'm very dedicated to the work that you do of service as a member of Parliament. Before that, I think the most relevant experience I'd had was when I was senior policy advisor to the Federal Minister of Environment in a nonpartisan position. Because of my environmental law background, I was brought into government when Brian Mulroney had a majority government. I wasn't a member of the party, but we did a lot of really significant work. To this day, one of the things I'm most honored to have participated in was working to create Guayahanas National Park in Haida Gwaii.
Is there anything we didn't talk about?
The thing I'm most devoted to is the idea of service leadership. And this may come from my faith, I don't know. It's just the idea that I want people to, I hope voters understand that it's not like grabbing a brass ring and grabbing perks or the image people have of politicians at the trough and all that kind of stuff. I work because I love this community. I work to serve people in the community, and I'm really honored to have been able to do so since 2011. But I know for a fact that I've helped thousands and thousands of individuals in Saanich Gulf Islands, as well as the big things like saving the Plant Health Centre, reversing bad decisions, getting the Canadian Revenue Agency to restore charitable status to good works in our community. I believe that the best people in Parliament are the people who understand how hard it is to make ends meet. And as a single mom living below the poverty line, I know what it was like to invent things that I could cook for cheap and take care of my family. And those experiences are things that people often don't think about. They see me as a member of Parliament and don't realize, yeah, I kind of lived with poverty for a long time. This job pays really well. I still can't afford a house here, but it's all right. I do love living here, and I hope that my husband, John Kidder, and I will have at some point the time to relax and enjoy a retirement. I just don't want it to start until after I serve another term as the MP for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Okay, the next interview is Kathy Olmsted, the Conservative candidate. Talk about what's motivating you to run in this election.
Well, what is motivating me is the struggles that I see that the citizens and my friends and my family in the riding are having with just society today, from our healthcare, from our public safety, our economics of our country. All of these things have me concerned, and everybody around me is concerned. If somebody would have said to me, 20 years ago that, Kathy, you're not going to ever have a family doctor in the year of 2025, I'd say, are you kidding? We live in Canada. We live in the best country of the world, and we are taken care of. So what has really motivated me to put my name in is that our tax dollars are going up and up and up, and we are receiving less and less services for that. And I feel with my financial and business background, I can be an asset to a government.
Is there anything specific that you want to accomplish for our riding?
I want to accomplish healthcare for us. I want to accomplish that we have hospitals and that they are staffed and that we have timely access to medical health. We have an aging demographic here that cannot. My mother-in-law a week ago fell, fractured her pelvis, and had internal bleeding and laid in a hospital hallway for 8 hours before they were able to even look at her. She then was touch and go, and still will probably spend months and months in the hospital. We almost lost her because the internal bleeding had gotten away, but nobody was able to check. So that's really personal to me. I also have an 89-year-old mother who is going to need medical care. My children, they're thankfully away at university, and because they play sports, they have a doctor. When they come back here, when they're done to pick up with their lives and start their jobs here, and want to start a family, they potentially don't have a doctor. There's so many women that are trying, they're expecting and they can't even get a midwife. Like, it is such critical mass.
Is there anything that we didn't discuss that you want to talk about?
Well, I would like to expand on even just the environmental piece that is directed by our federal government, and that is important here in our riding as well. Environmentally, for us to become carbon neutral, we need to be able to open up our energy sectors to other countries, because our carbon footprint doesn't just end at our borders. It's a worldwide issue. So the moment that we are actually able to share our clean renewable energy, our LNG, to countries like Asia, Europe, and that then will open up our economy and to help us to be a solid economic country instead of being reliant on the U.S. And you see where the state we're in at this moment.
Why should people vote for you?
People should vote for me because I am here. I am accountable. You're going to see me in the community. I will always stop and talk to people, and I am accountable. I am accountable to everybody that lives in this community should I be the next member of parliament. I get things done. I have energy. I bring a newer energetic approach to what we've had in the past, and I would just really like to see more happen for our riding.
And then last up, we've got Colin Plant, who's the NDP candidate. What's motivating you to run in this election?
Sure. I will share a story that I've shared elsewhere as well, but I'll start it here. When I was a child, my mother kept a scrapbook of what I was doing in grade 1, 2, 3. I think like many people, their parents kept a scrapbook. And when I was in kindergarten, the back page with who was your friends, what was your favorite food, what did you want to be when you grow up? And it had to be other. It was to be the government. And I found that kind of funny at an older age now, but I really believe it wasn't because I was bossy and wanted to tell people what to do, but rather because even as a young boy, I wanted to help people.
In your view, what are the top 3 things that need to be addressed in our riding, and why?
The first answer is affordability. There is no doubt that since COVID, things have become really, really unaffordable. It was already trending unaffordable, but the increases to things that we just rely on as staples, food, resources like our heating fuel, petroleum to run our cars, have gotten more and more expensive. And so that is one issue that the NDP is really clear on. We are going to make policy to help make life affordable. And we will use every tool in the toolbox to do that. So affordability is number 1. But number 2, connected to that, is housing. You were an elected official. You know that housing has been an issue for at least the last 15 years in our region. And that's largely because in the 90s, the country got out of building co-op and affordable housing because of austerity measures. And as a result of those decisions 30 years ago, we are now seeing housing becoming very difficult to get for many people because there aren't as many options, and especially options for those who aren't as well off. The third one, it's the environment. And in the environment, I think we have to acknowledge, I am a believer that we have a climate emergency. Look at the events that are happening around the world. And we need to, as a region, as a province, as a country, we need to adapt and modify how we operate.
So now we're at the part where I get to ask if there's anything that we didn't talk about.
I just want to leave your listeners and yourself with a sense of commitment to this community. I'm from here. I grew up here. I work here. I'm raising my kids here. I want people to age here and feel that they can afford to live here. And so I'm just wanting people to know that I am a positive person. I'm going to be respectful at the door. at the meetings. You're not going to hear mudslinging from me. I really believe that this country needs proportional representation so that the ridings across Canada are represented by a diversity of candidates, and that our parliament reflects the diversity we have. More than ever, this country is more and more diverse politically, and yet our system of first past the post doesn't recognize. And so I'm a big believer in that. And if I was fortunate to be elected, I'm happy to say the NDP, it's part of our platform that we would have a national assembly of how to implement it during our term of government. That being said, if we don't form government and I was an MP, it would still be something I push because I believe it. It just makes sense in a country as diverse as ours that we get to the 21st century with an electoral system that reflects more and more of our votes so that every vote matters.
So, welcome back to our exploration of the political landscape in the Saanich Gulf Islands. We're now turning to a perspective that deserves more attention in our national discourse, and that's the crucial role of Indigenous economic development in building Canada's economic resilience. We're fortunate to have with us Adam Olsen, who's the chair of the Tsartlip Group of Companies, who can provide insight into these issues and share his perspective on how federal policy affects their work.
Yeah, I started the conversation by asking Adam about the Tsartlip First Nation and the Tsartlip Group of Companies.
All right, so my name is Adam Olsen. I am the board chair of Tsartlip Group of Companies, and work for the Tsartlip First Nation, my home community here, just about 20 minutes north of Victoria, British Columbia on Vancouver Island. Yeah, so we're working, we've got a fuel and convenience store, and we're looking to build businesses in a couple of different areas. I think that we are looking at some environmental services, growth in some environmental services, as well as I think the fuel and convenience business, there's some opportunities there for us. For decades, this country has built an economy that has excluded Indigenous people, First Nations communities, Indigenous people across the country. And, the exclusion has come at a cost. And we see the cost in our communities, the socioeconomic gaps, the infrastructure deficits that we experience within our own villages and within our own communities is dramatic, and is a result of the exclusion from local, regional, and the federal economy, the national economy. Part of the problem with exclusion, of course, is that we have not been able to build the pools of capital and liquidity that we need in order to be able to invest in businesses, to invest in that local economy, that national economy very easily. All of our programs and services in First Nations are federal and provincial programs and services, and they have very, very strict reporting requirements. It's not like we can take, program funding that we get for, for one of our departments and invest it in business. So, it's the equivalent of trying to start up a business with nothing, and it's very, very difficult to do that. And of course, the investment schemes that other businesses would be attracted to, or that would help support those businesses getting started, may not be appropriate, because these are not just, we're not just creating a business. What we're looking to create is the engine for self-determination. There has been a lot of talk around what economic reconciliation looks like, and this has been, largely a focus of, partnering First Nations up with major projects that the government has prioritized that they would like to see happen, and that really has been the limited view of what reconciliation means to some people in the political in the political landscape. I think that it's really important to recognize that reconciliation is a full package project. You can't just pull out, the economic aspects of it and say, this is where we're going to focus reconciliation. Reconciling our past is a full project that requires a comprehensive view. The economic aspects of it are just one piece. And so, I think that it's really important for us to be ensuring that when we hear the terms economic reconciliation, it sounds like that's going to, be this solution for us, and that it's going to make all the rest of the problems go away. I think that what we need to be doing is saying, look, reconciliation is a project that requires social, environmental, and economic aspects to it, cultural aspects to it that we have to be paying close attention to, and we also have to be very supportive of the economic development potential that for First Nations, so that we can meet those, fill the gaps that exist today because of the systems that have been built for us. The value of good relationships cannot be understated here, and I don't think that it can actually be quantified. But the reality is that we're just going to be in a much better place in this country when we've got equitable and just relationships and partnerships in business, and everybody can be setting up to thrive together, rather than, like I said, there be this dramatic distinction between First Nations and non-First Nation communities.
We've heard today from both people on the street. We've heard from the candidates, so 3 of the 4 candidates running here in our riding. And we've got a bit of an Indigenous perspective and how it might impact some of the ways that people are going to vote. Bit of a unique perspective, but you can see themes are crossing over with Trump tariffs and with economic resiliency. Those are sort of cross-cutting themes that I think we're probably not very different from other ridings in Canada.
Yeah, and I have to say the national unity theme is there in the background. Definitely we've got a different local take on things, and the local issues are there, but we see ourselves overall as part of that big Team Canada, and we're wondering who's going to lead us.
Well said, Peter. So thanks very much for listening. You've been listening to Alt-Election coverage, the first of a series of episodes coming to you today from Vancouver Island. My name is Bill Collins.
And I'm Peter Wainwright.
And we'll catch you later.